for a bit of lunch. And he says, there's a lovely little restaurant just down the road. We could walk there. So I didn't even mention my Rolls Royce was parked down the end of the road. I didn't even mention it. I didn't know this guy from Adam, but we started walking down the road to this little restaurant. And I was going to quite modestly just walk straight past my Rolls Royce. I was going to ignore it. But when we got to it, he kind of put his hands out across the pavement and he kind of waved it about. He said, stop, stop. He says, do you mind? He says, that is my dream car. And it was a yellow Rolls Royce, all polished up, and it looked like $1 million. And he says, that is my dream car. I said, do you like it? He said, I love it. I said, well, in that case, I said, we'll nick it. He said, what? I said, we'll nick it. I said, I don't mean we'll nick it. I said, we'll just nick it, take it to the restaurant and bring it back. We'll nick it. He says, you can't do that. I said, look, I can't even promise I'll get in it. So I got this bunch of keys out, and of course I knew it. I put it in the door. I said, look, we're in. I said, go around the other side. And I didn't know this guy from Adam. His face dropped open. He got in with me. His accomplice nicking a Rolls Royce. Can you imagine? So I said, I don't get excited. We haven't started it yet. Let me just see if I can find a key that might start this thing. And I fiddled around, and of course the thing burst into life. Vroom! And he looked at me. He said, it's yours, isn't it? I said, yeah. I said, it is. But you start putting programs in your brain at a cellular level, things are going to happen for you. I left school at the age of 14, and really and truly I didn't know anything, and educated myself, and I signed up as a carpenter and joiner, did an apprenticeship. The day I finished my apprenticeship, it was about 20, I set up my first motorcycle shop. Right? Can you imagine? Finished the apprenticeship as a carpenter and joiner, but I set up a motorcycle shop. And it was my first motorcycle shop, and I set it up, and it was all lovely. And as a young man, I'll never forget it, this guy arrived on my forecourt, and he looked at me. He's a bit older than me. He says, I can't believe it. You're a young man. You've got your own motorcycle shop. He said, have you ever read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill? Right? Now, I was a bit embarrassed. I've just told you, I left school at the age of 14, did an apprenticeship as a carpenter and joiner. At the age of 20, I'd never read any book at all. Never read a book in my life, let alone Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So I didn't tell him that. I said, no, I've never read the book. And he said, I think you could get a lot out of that book. He said, I'll go and get you a copy. So he bought me this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, first book I ever read, and I didn't know any better. You see, when I'm reading it, I thought it was an instruction book. So I never just read it from cover to cover. Every time it told me to do something, I put the book down and did the instruction. So it says, write on a big bit of paper, quitters never win and winners never quit. So I wrote this out on a big bit of paper, rushed back to the book to see what to do next. He says, once you've done that, pin it above your bed where you see it every night. So I pinned it up, there it was. Quitters never win and winners never quit. Look, we got some, how did that magic up? So, next thing I read in the book, set yourself up a mastermind group, right? A mastermind group. And they'll help you get things happening. So, who did I have around me? I had one motorcycle shop. All I had was my mechanics and my salesman. The instructions were, set up a mastermind group. So I said to them, lined them all up as though they were going to be shot. I said, you're going to be my mastermind group. And you know what they did? They fell about laughing. Mastermind group. Ah! They thought it was hilarious. When all the laughing stopped, what do you want us to do? I said, I don't know. But you're my mastermind group. You're going to help me make this business expand and grow. So it was incredible. If you haven't set yourself up a mastermind group, get some people around you who you can spark off and make things happen. So these mechanics and salesmen, they helped me grow this thing, and in the end, we had the biggest motorcycle chain of shops in London, right across South London. Absolutely incredible. Very, very, very exciting story. But there's another little twist to it. One of those guys came in one day, and he says, there's a big motorcycle shop, at Hampton Court. And he says, the word on the street is this business is up for sale. But he says lots of people have gone in to see the guy to try and buy it, and the guy is very aggressive, and he goes, it's not for sale. But the word on the street is that it is for sale. So he says, if we could get it, it would be fantastic. But you've got a little bit of a problem there. And the other problem was, of course, I had to raise the money to actually go out and buy it. I had two problems. Even if I could raise the money, how could I convince the guy to say yes? So what happened, every night I was determined to get that little shop, that is a huge shop, in my empire. And I drove out to Hampton Court in my little yellow truck, parked the truck around the back, and I looked in this motorcycle shop, right? This is the important thing, not with my glasses and my eyes looking in, but with my insight, which is at the back of my head, right? Not eyesight, but insight. And I projected myself into the shop, not with my eyes, but in the back of my mind, I could actually visualize myself being in this shop as though I owned it. Selling motorcycles, stacking the shelves, sweeping up the floors. I owned this shop. I put that program in at a cellular level over and over again. Bang, 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 bang. Every night I drove out to Hampton Court, not looking with my eyes, but I pressed my nose up against the window, and in the back of my mind, I saw myself in there, visualized myself in there, and I owned it. And after 3 weeks, what do you think happened? Little eureka. Little idea popped into my head. I can raise the money to get this shop. I knew how to do it. And that's not the point of this story. I raised the money. I got it from a number of different sources. The purpose of this story is, how did I convince the guy to actually sell it to me when I know he had turned down a load of other people? But I had a eureka, and I'm not going to tell you what it was, I'm going to demonstrate it to you. So I raised the money, and one Saturday morning I went to buy the shop, but I knew he might say no. So I went down there with a big load of money, sufficient to choke a bull with, a massive hip pocket roll in my pocket. I went in, I saw the guy, I said, hello Bill, I said, my name's Ron Holland, I own some shops, love to buy your shop. He said, I know who you are, I know all about you. I said, well, are you up for selling your shop to me? He says, no, he says, I'm not interested. Now, I was ready for that because he had turned down a number of other people. So I said to him, well, how about I buy a whole load of stock from you at wholesale prices? And he stopped and thought. I could see the thought process going, the cogs turning in his brain. And he said to me, he says, well, why not? And the minute he said that, I said, well, I'll have those 7 motorbikes, 27 petrol tanks, 14 gearboxes. I'll have all those boxes of bits and pieces there. And I got out my money. I loaded all of this stuff up onto my truck and drove it to one of my other shops. Dropped it off. Next Saturday, what do you think I did? Went back, walked in, I said, hello Bill. I said, I'm still ever so keen to buy your shop. I want to buy your shop. And he said, no, he says, it's not for sale. And I said, well, no problem. I said, how about I buy some stock at wholesale prices? And he thought for a minute. He said, well, why not? I said, well, I'll have 14 of those motorbikes, 6 of those wheels, 4 of those petrol tanks, and I got out my money. You see what's coming, don't you? I drove it all back to one of my other shops, dropped it off. The next Saturday, I went back for more. I walked in the shop. This is what happened. I walked in the shop, and I got out my money this time, ready to buy a big load of stuff. And I said, I'll have 4 motorbikes, 27 tanks. And he stopped me. He said, stop. He said, wouldn't it make more sense if you bought the whole shop? And I got it. The biggest motorcycle shop in London, okay? I'm trying to impress. I know there's people in here want business, make things happen. Start really programming your mind at a cellular level. Affirmations, really doing it. Visualizations, really doing it. I want to share with you the biggest secret in self-help that is not in the books. The biggest secret in self-help is that most people read the books, do the workshops, but they do not actually write a list of goals, do the affirmations, and actually visualize them. Right? So reading the books is not enough. Doing the seminars and workshops is not enough. The only thing that counts is programming your own mind over and over again at a cellular level. A couple more ever such quick stories. During the course of my motorcycles shops, had 7 shops, and I nearly went bankrupt because I didn't know the difference between cash flow and profit. And I spent all the money, and one day I've woken up and I've got 7 empty motorbike shops. I hadn't been ploughing the money back into the stock, spent the money, didn't know the difference between cash flow and profit. And I went around the banks and the venture capital companies everywhere trying to get some money to restock my 7 empty shops, and nobody would give me the money. Nobody. And I thought, what am I going to do? So intuitively, I visualised those motorcycle shops chock-a-block with motorcycles. We had hundreds, in my imagination, hundreds of motorcycles. I visualised them over and over again at a cellular level, seeing clearly we had so many motorbikes, we couldn't even close the doors. And then I got this little eureka about 3 days later. It said, if you want motorcycles, just go out and buy all the motorcycle papers, phone every classified advert, say, have you still got your motorcycle for sale? Bring it into one of my showrooms and we'll sell it for you. And I just made hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. And what do you think happened? The motorbikes flooded in on sale or return, and we filled those motorcycle shops. That's how I made my first fortune. It was incredible. That methodology is still there to do today. Okay, so what I specialise is in helping people accomplish their goals, helping them with business acumen, but helping them also get the visualisation right. Ever so quickly, I want to share with you, we got a couple of books out there for sale. So this is the kind of 2 in the series. This one, Turbo Success, came out in 1993. This is my latest book. Talk and Grow Rich came out 30 years ago, so it's a trilogy. And they're about programming the mind, really showing you how to do the affirmations and the visualizations. Very, very powerful stuff. So buy any book today, and we'll give you a little raffle ticket that will give you the shot of coming to one of my workshops for absolutely free. Right, so I want you to come to the workshop anyway. It's called Cash Flow Magic. It's on the 19th of May, coming up soon. Multiple streams of income. How many people here interested in multiple streams of income? All of you. There's not a hand that didn't go up. You need to be at this workshop, but one person today will win that free ticket. And I just want to share one story, one final story with you before we go, and this is it. We've talked today about programming the mind, banging stuff in at a cellular level. And I just want to share a quick story with you about an American couple who came over to the UK to discover their roots. And they arrived, they knew where their family had come from, and they were up there in Norfolk. And they were looking around an old graveyard at the stones and reading the names, trying to track back their roots. And they happened to look over the fence, and they got steam trains up in Norfolk. They still got them there. They do like excursion trips and everything. And there was a steam train there in the siding. It wasn't doing anything. It was just sitting there. And there was a little bit of steam, smoke coming out the chimney, and a little bit of smoke coming out the bottom, and nothing happening to it. And they thought they'd go and have a look at it. And they weren't impressed, because in America they got these big Amtrak trains. So they looked at this massive, great steam train, and they looked at it. And the little old American lady, she looked at her husband, and she said, "What do you think, honey?" And he looked at it, and he wasn't impressed at all. And like I say, nothing was happening to it. There was no smoke, no steam. It was just stationary. It was massive. And he looked at it, and he said, "Psst, it'll never start. It'll never start." You see, but they didn't know anything about steam trains. On every steam train, you see, there is a fireman. And the fireman, he was diligently putting on the coal, heaping on the coal, tons of it, coal on the fire. You don't just put the coal on anywhere, you discipline it, you get the coal on just the right bits to get the fire and the furnace up. And he was putting on the coal and heaping it on, and at the same time he was dialing up the gauges, getting up ahead of steam, and suddenly the beast came alive. Suddenly there's smoke coming out the chimney, steam coming down the bottom, massive great flywheels, go, it went back and forth. The